Picture the worst punishment you can imagine. Not pain, not death, not exile. Something worse than any of those. Picture being given a task that can never be completed. A boulder to push up a hill, every single day for eternity. And every single day, just before you reach the top, it rolls back down. And you walk back down after it. And you push it up again, forever. No end, no rest. No hope of ever finishing. That is the punishment of Sisyphus, and the reason the gods invented it specifically for him is because Sisyphus was, without question, the single most audacious, infuriating, brilliant, and ungovernable mortal who ever lived. He cheated death. Twice. And the second time he did it so smoothly that death didn't even notice until it was too late. Welcome back to Mythos Uncovered, and today we are back in ancient Greece with a story that has fascinated philosophers, poets, and ordinary people for thousands of years. Not just because the punishment is memorable, but because of who Sisyphus was before it, and what his story says about the human refusal to accept limits. Let's get into it. Sisyphus was the founder and king of Ephyra, the city that would later become Corinth, one of the great city-states of ancient Greece. From the very beginning, the myths mark him out as exceptional. He was considered the craftiest of all mortals, a man of extraordinary intelligence and absolutely no compunction about using it for his own benefit, regardless of who it hurt. He was a brilliant administrator, a cunning diplomat, and by all ancient accounts a thoroughly unpleasant person to cross. He was also, in some traditions, the father of Odysseus, which would explain a great deal about Odysseus's particular brand of clever ruthlessness. His trouble with the gods began, as these things often do, with a woman. Zeus had abducted a young woman named Aegina, daughter of the river god Sisyphus, and carried her off to an island. Sisyphus was searching desperately for his daughter and had no idea where she had gone. Sisyphus knew. He had seen it happen. And here is where his character reveals itself completely. He went to Sisyphus and offered to tell him where his daughter was in exchange for a freshwater spring for his city. He traded information about Zeus's activities for real estate. Zeus was furious. He sent Thanatos, Death himself, the personification of the end of all mortal life, to drag Sisyphus down to the underworld immediately. And here is where Sisyphus performed the first of his two great escapes. When Thanatos arrived at his palace, Sisyphus greeted him with every appearance of calm cooperation. He expressed great admiration for the chains Thanatos carried, the chains meant to bind the dead and drag them to the underworld. He asked politely, with apparent curiosity, how exactly such powerful chains worked. He seemed genuinely interested. He seemed harmless. He asked Thanatos to demonstrate how they worked. And Thanatos, apparently not anticipating this, showed him. Sisyphus promptly locked the chains around Thanatos and left him there. Death was imprisoned. And with death in chains, nobody could die. Anywhere. Soldiers fell in battle and got back up. Old people lingered past all endurance. The whole machinery of mortal life ground to a halt because its essential mechanism had been removed. The gods were alarmed. Ares, the god of war, was particularly furious because battles had lost all meaning. He eventually tracked down Thanatos, freed him, and handed Sisyphus over. But before he went down to the underworld, Sisyphus had arranged one final trick. He instructed his wife to leave his body unburied and perform no funeral rites. This was a serious violation of sacred custom. When Sisyphus arrived in the underworld and stood before Persephone, he told her that his wife had neglected his burial and that he really needed to go back up to the world of the living to give her a proper scolding and make sure the rites were performed correctly. He appealed to her sense of propriety. He was given 3 days. He did not come back. 3 days passed. Then a week, then a month. The gods waited. Sisyphus did not return. He had looked at the open door of the underworld behind him and simply kept walking in the other direction. He went home. He went back to his life, his city, his throne. The myth does not record what his wife thought of all this, though one suspects she had strong opinions. Sisyphus simply resumed living as though the underworld was something that happened to other people, which, as far as he was concerned, it was. He lived on for many more years, and he reportedly told anyone who would listen that he had talked his way out of the underworld, and was rather pleased about it. When old age finally took him and Hermes was sent personally to escort him back down, because at this point no one was going to risk leaving the task to anyone Sisyphus could outwit. The gods had already decided on his punishment, something that matched the nature of his crime. He had spent his life accumulating, climbing, reaching, refusing to accept any limit placed on him. So his eternity would be the same: endless climbing, endless reaching, and an end that always undid itself. Hey, quick pause right here. If you're enjoying this, please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It genuinely helps this channel grow and means more myths, more stories, more uncovering. All right, back to Sisyphus. The boulder and the hill. It is one of the most vivid images in all of ancient mythology, and the Greeks described it in precise detail. The boulder was enormous, too large for any ordinary man to move. The hill was steep enough that reaching the top required everything Sisyphus had. And the mechanism of its rolling back was simply gravity, simple physics, the most indifferent force in the universe undoing all that effort in seconds. For the Greeks, this was a punishment of perfect poetic justice. Sisyphus had refused to accept the natural order. He had cheated death not once but twice, had imprisoned Thanatos, had manipulated his way back from the underworld, had treated the gods as obstacles to be outmaneuvered rather than powers to be respected. And so his eternity would be a perfect mirror of his life. All effort, all striving, all the appearance of progress, and then the undoing of it all, over and over, without end. What makes this myth so enduringly powerful is that it does not stay comfortable as a simple moral lesson. The longer you sit with it, the more uncomfortable it becomes. Because Sisyphus is not obviously wrong. He cheated death because he wanted to live. He used his intelligence to overcome every obstacle placed in front of him. These are not qualities the human mind easily condemns. Every story we tell about clever heroes, about people who refuse to give up, about the triumph of wit over brute force. Sisyphus is in all of those stories too. The gods punished him for being too good at being human, too unwilling to accept the limitations that mortality is supposed to impose. The story of Sisyphus did not stay inside mythology. It reached forward into philosophy in a way that very few ancient myths have managed. There is a famous essay by the French philosopher Albert Camus, written in the 20th century, called The Myth of Sisyphus. Camus argued that Sisyphus should be understood not as a figure of despair, but as a figure of defiance and even happiness. The rock will always roll back down. The task will never be completed. But in the moments of walking back down the hill, in the full consciousness of his situation, refusing to be crushed by it, Sisyphus is free. He owns his fate because he has looked at it clearly and chosen to keep going anyway. Camus wrote that we must imagine Sisyphus happy. It is one of the most debated sentences in modern philosophy. And none of it would exist without a Greek king who once put death in chains and asked for 3 days. So, Sisyphus, a king, a cheat, a genius, and ultimately a symbol. The man who cheated death twice, who treated the gods as problems to be solved, and who was given an eternal punishment that somehow, across thousands of years of human thought, became a symbol not just of futility, but of what it means to be fully, defiantly alive in the face of the impossible. The myths always have more in them than we first think. That's why we're here. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Mythos Uncovered. It genuinely means a lot that you spend your time here with me diving into these ancient stories. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. And if you're not subscribed yet, subscribe now and hit the bell so you never miss a new myth. And drop a comment below telling me what myth or legend you want me to cover next. Every single comment gets read, and the next video might just come from you. I'll see you in the next one.